Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be with you here this morning for this Ministerial Round Table on climate change. The effects of climate change are increasingly visible across the globe. In Thailand, for example, the current floods have already displaced well above 110,000 people from their homes. And unfortunately, the Minister of Thailand cannot join us today because he promised to come until the flood, so he was obliged to cancel his trip to this Telecom. And by last weekend, the death toll had risen to 356. I believe the figure will be still higher. With climate change, we can expect the intense rain events like those that contributed to the floods in Thailand to become more common and more severe. To prepare for this new reality, we need to be able to respond in an efficient manner. Over the past few years, ITU has been raising awareness about the role of information and communication technologies, ICTs, in addressing climate change. Across the world, ICT networks are already in use, providing early warning of climatological changes, allowing governments to better respond to the natural disasters. This is an area in which ITU is providing strong support to our member states, with projects being implemented at the national level. In several countries, ICTs are being used to monitor flood supplies, food supplies, mapping agricultural production, and helping to predict food shortages, monitoring environmental and soil conditions through accurate sensors and telemetry units, helps to protect agricultural products from the forces of nature and maximize output in less fertile areas. Similarly, the use of smart meters and smart grids improves the efficiency in the use of limited resources such as water or energy. ICTs enable sustainable development and allow for the more efficient use of resources, and in particular energy, from climate monitoring to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and from adaptation to facilitating the development and the transfer of technologies. Key advances promoted by ITU have improved the collaboration between the ICT industry and the public sector in both knowledge and best practices exchange. We have also been working to develop a set of standardized methodologies to assess the environmental impact of ICTs themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, the world will have two unique opportunities over the next few months to move the sustainable agenda forward. The 2011 United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP17, taking place in Durban, South Africa, and the 2012 United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, Rio +20, taking place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Although the outcomes of either conferences are difficult to predict, one thing is very clear: business as usual is no longer an option if we want to ensure the livelihood of our planet. The future demands a shift towards a greener and more sustainable model of development. ITU's message to COP17 is simple. ICTs are part of the solution, a solution that can move the agenda forward. And let me invite our ministers to join ITU in highlighting the importance of ICTs at COP17. So I add particularly these remarks with my own experiences when I participated in the UN conference in Poland, Bosnia, that the ITU's voice is not that strong at that conference. But we learned that if our ministers could help us to push this ICT importance through this process at the national level, regional level, I think that the importance of ICT for the climate change will be much, much more heard by the public. And we can use ICT to help. Let's recognize the phenomenal power of ICTs in the outcomes of the conference and ensure that technology, innovation, and information systems will be at the forefront of our strategy to address climate change. Recognition at this level will highlight ICTs as an enabler for climate change adaptation strategies, particularly in developing countries. And by working together, we can advance the implementation of new solutions for a better future for the planet and for the human species. Let me close these remarks with a contribution to the ITU Telecom event Manifesto for Change, which is the principal outcome of ITU Telecom World 2011 this week in Geneva. ICTs are crucial in addressing climate change issues, in monitoring, mitigation, adaptation, and response. I thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I think that after my remarks, I would like to introduce you to the panelist who is listed on the agenda. Let me introduce you to His Excellency, Mr. Basaros Hakino, Honorable Member of Parliament and the Chairman Standing Committee from Bangladesh. Welcome you. And we also have ministers scheduled from Egypt to join us, but unfortunately he's urgently engaged with the Secretary General for another functions. So His Excellency, Dr. Ahmed Sharabini, Deputy Minister of Egypt, is with us. Welcome. And also on my right-hand side, Her Excellency, Mrs. Josna Matic, State Secretary for Digital Agenda, Ministry of Culture, Media, and Information Society from Serbia. Welcome you. And we have also on the list His Excellency Mr. Ruhakana Rakunda, Minister of Information and Communication Technologies of Uganda. Welcome, Excellency. And on my list, I have His Excellency Minister Radhakist Shina Padayashiri, Minister of Communications from South Africa. Welcome. And my friend, His Excellency Minister from South Africa, left this Ministry of Communication for some while. Welcome you back, and welcome you to join us again. And we also have His Excellency, I need my glasses. My staff will add this one. His Excellency, Mr. Philip Ankundi, Chairman of Communications Commission of Kenya, joining us. Welcome. And at this panelist, I also have two private sectors listed, but unfortunately, I understand that they're not available at this moment. But I think that look at the list of panelists. I will give them some time to speak first. But since we have so many ministers participate in this session, after general introduction by the ministers and the panelists, I will also invite the other ministers to talk. 3 to 5 minutes to speak. You excrete also. Yes, yeah, I know. We have several ministers. Minister from Niger, minister from Gabon, I think the minister of Malawi, we have Suriname, and we have, I would like to invite the ministers from, what happened? Minister of Niger registered.
I'll allow him. I didn't know.
Huh? Sorry about that. Yeah. Let me just check. Later links. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, it's listed here. Why it's not here? Yeah, sorry about that. His Excellency Minister from Niger, Mr. Salivou Law Abushi, Minister of Niger. Sorry about that. Yeah, if you allow me, perhaps I will start by inviting ministers and the panelists to give us, because we don't have much time, if you allow me, I think that the 3 to 5 minutes to have your general remarks. Then I'd like to open the floor for debate. So let me first invite Honorable Minister from Bangladesh, Mr. Inu, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I come from Bangladesh. I'm Hassanul Haq Inu. I'm the chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Post and Telecommunications. I come from Bangladesh, a disaster-prone country, most vulnerable, handicapped with triple illiteracy, information illiteracy, language illiteracy, and digital illiteracy. But our government has put forward the concept of sustainable green economy and declared to go digital by 2021. By that, Bangladesh has started to switch over to green power for mobile sectors from IPv4 to IPv6 platform by 2012. From 2007 till now, our mobile network, the largest mobile network, Grameenphone, has switched over to renewable green energy with solar and wind energy, 129 BTS. It is a hybrid solution combination of solar, wind energy with diesel power supplements that saves 1.3 million liter of diesel per year, 3,490 tons of carbon dioxide emissions less. Each site saves 30 tons of carbon dioxide per year. Well, by now, out of 30,000 BTS, 7,000 BTS have been switched over to non-AC air conditioning systems, or that is 7,000 BTS, we have put down air conditioning units down, and with upgraded appropriate technology, it reduces CFC emissions. BTS solar panels, apart from these, they are trying to help 136 houses get electricity in the community. Disaster early forewarning by SMS cell broadcast to 2 coastal districts has already started. In the 2008 great cyclone which devastated our country in the coastal belt, BTS were designed to withstand that calamity, and BTS used for emergency evacuation and relief management. In our licensing condition for mobiles, we have said 10% of the BTS should be with renewable energy. All equipment imported to Bangladesh should have to be compatible with IPv6. And we are started developing green buildings in the capital. Apart from that, we are developing a national environment information system and also developing national emergency telecommunications plan. And by 2014, 19,000 of our secondary schools are going digital with a special curriculum on environmental education that will help to reduce individual carbon footprint. We are reviewing our Telecom Act to incorporate issues of environment, focuses on e-waste management, electromagnetic emissions, etc., etc. These are certain areas which we are trying to do our best. And you can come and see, and if it is suits you, you can replicate in your countries. But apart from these Bangladesh initiatives, for the world community, we think we must consider certain proposals. And the proposals are to develop technical standards that limit power requirements of ICT equipments and services, because ICT is also pollute environment. We can switch over to cloud computing. We can reduction of carbon footprint of data centers by shifting away to renewable energy sources, shifting away from individual owned and operated centers towards a shared facilities with cloud computing operator. We can formulate correct public policy for e-waste management. That is a challenge at the moment. We can switch over to green power for mobile, which I have already told. We can switch over to reduce carbon greenhouse emissions in industries that are major polluters. As Vice Chairman has said, we can apply ICT to reduce major polluted industries, energy generation with smart grids, building constructions. Proven and available technology with ICT application at the moment can reduce energy use by 30%. Transport system with intelligent networks, dematerialization plan, which reduces manufacturing needs by replacing material goods with virtual goods, provide means for virtual meetings, teleworking, social networking, home shopping, etc., etc. We can switch over to IPv6, develops the Internet of Things, and its application helps to develop platforms for implementing green ICT and smart solutions throughout the economy and society. ICTs and Internet can help predict, detect, and respond to disasters, to develop early warning systems with automatic weather stations, weather forecasting networks with supercomputers. We can develop a national emergency telecommunication plan, and ITU can help in this respect. We can go for a national environmental information system that will be source of data for the region. We can install a remote monitoring of Earth by satellite with visible spectrum cameras to detect storms and deforestation. We can equip this satellite with infrared cameras to detect cloud, surface temperatures, water quality, sea level rise, particle detectors of solar emissions, crop patterns, soil conditions, and by that we can remodel our agriculture to lessen nitrous oxide emissions. That is a polluter. We don't have this type of satellites in Asia and Africa. Europe do have a geostationary operational environment satellite, Meteosat 8 over Atlantic. It needs funding, and for that the development partners can come up with the necessary funds to install a satellite which will help Asia and Africa to monitor all these things. Well, we can, just 1 minute. We can apply ICT to track down environmental refugees for their management, and we can promote environmental education for conservation of water, fauna and flora, and fostering sustainable development. Well, countries need to review their telecom acts to incorporate issues of environment which will focus on e-waste management and electromagnetic emissions and other things. To develop a public policy that guides use of ICTs to combat climate change, ITU can come up with a common standard. Well, the major question is finance, and for that I will ask the development partners and international quarters to come up with finance, not in an ad hoc basis, but in a holistic strategical basis that will help to mitigate climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bangladesh is somehow a little bit special. That at the recent another meeting on climate change, I heard from a very senior representative of Bangladesh give us a very special remarks that Bangladesh is considered as supermarket of a natural disaster. I did not agree, but they give us some explanation, because natural disaster including volcano, or this kind of things not here in Bangladesh. But anyhow, I think that we have more chance, more time and opportunity to hear from our honorable member of parliament. Yeah. Next, I would like to invite my friend Ahmed to give us a very short, please, as short as possible, remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhao. It's indeed a pleasure and an honor for Egypt to be part of this ministerial roundtable dealing with the important issue of the ICT and climate change. There are 3 points that I would like to us all to bear in mind while discussing the issue. Developing countries, which I see that most of the honorable ministers here represent, we are suffering the repercussions and the effects of climate change while we were not part of the cause of the climate change. So we are suffering the effects and we didn't cause it in the first place. So I call on the developed countries, the large multinationals, to support developing countries, both financially and technologically, to combat the effect of climate change on their countries, first. Second, I think there is a need to always remember the importance of positioning the ICT sector and the role of the ICT on the international agenda of climate change. There are different fora in the world that talks about climate change. We need to position the ICT role as an important tool of combating and mitigating the effect of ICT on the international agenda. And the ITU is playing an important role in that. And as Helene was saying, there is the COP17 that will take place in Durban next month. So we would like the ITU voice to be more heard in that forum. And ITU has held several workshops on ICT and climate change. And the fifth of those workshops was held in Egypt, in Cairo, and came up with a document called the Cairo Roadmap. And the sixth workshop was held in Ghana and came up with a document called the Accra Declaration. We believe that these 2 documents already contain most and clearly outline what needs to be done, and they should be a guideline for the ITU when addressing that issue on the international agenda. The third thing that I think we should keep in mind is the importance of coming up or setting up a clear methodology for assessing the impact of ICT on the environment. So we can have clear enabling mechanisms to set up clear goals for reducing the CO2 emissions. And ITU is also playing an important role in that, and I would like to commend the ITUT sector specifically and the study group 5 for coming up with very important specifications regarding this aspect. I don't want to talk much about what Egypt is doing on the issue of ICT and climate change and environment, but we, on the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, we have this issue very high on our agenda. We have set an ICT green strategy in year 2010 that have 3 or 4 pivots mainly. We address, we try to promote ICT applications that could mitigate and adapt the effect of ICT climate change. We are also promoting the concept of smart buildings to reduce and energy-friendly buildings to reduce CO2 emissions. We approach that issue with a multi-stakeholder approach. We have an MOU with the Ministry of Environment. We have a consultation, public consultations to take all the stakeholders on board. So the plan that we will come up with will actually reflect the need of the society, not just a decree from the ministry. And also we give very special importance to the issue of e-waste and e-waste management. And actually the first e-waste management recycling factory was opened in Egypt last year, and we hope that we will have more of that to help on the issue. I don't want to take much of your time, Mr. Chairman, but we are very much interested in the issue. We have had efforts, we collaborate with the ITU, and we believe that all developing countries should put the issue of climate change and the effect and the use of ICT high on their agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for your kind recognition of IT rules here. And I think that we might have time to also invite you to give us some examples, some kind of measures Egypt already introduced to help later on. Now I'd like to invite His Excellency, Minister Salifou Law Boucher, Minister of Communication and New Technology and Information of Niger, to give us some remarks. S'il vous plaît, merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais, au nom de la délégation que j'ai l'honneur de conduire à ces importantes rencontres, présenter mes sincères remerciements au secrétaire général de l'Union internationale des télécommunications, le docteur Hamadoun Touré, pour son aimable invitation adressée à mon pays, le Niger, à participer à ITU Telecom World 2011 au sommet large bande. C'est pour moi un grand plaisir de prendre part à ma qualité de ministre en charge des télécommunications et des technologies de l'information de mon pays à cette plateforme mondiale de discussion, de collaboration, de partage de connaissances et de réseautage que l'IUT fournit aux acteurs du secteur des technologies de l'information et de la communication, que sont les personnalités et décideurs politiques, les régulateurs, les industriels, les partenaires au développement et les consommateurs. Mesdames, Messieurs, distingués participants, je voudrais relever qu'à travers ITU Telecom World, l'Union internationale des télécommunications nous offre l'occasion d'engager de grands débats sur des problématiques majeures de développement du secteur comme l'accès aux larges bandes, la cybersécurité, la transition vers le numérique, l'éthique et le changement climatique et les télécommunications d'urgence. ITU Telecom World nous sert également de tribune, particulièrement à des pays en voie de développement comme le Niger, pour faire état de leur niveau de connectivité au service d'éthique, mais aussi de dévoiler leurs ambitions, j'allais dire leurs visions et leurs objectifs pour le développement du secteur ainsi que les efforts faits pour créer les conditions d'un environnement propice aux investissements privés dans leurs économies respectives. S'agissant des télécommunications d'urgence, c'est une problématique qui intéresse de plus près nos pays du Sahel, particulièrement le Niger, qui est confronté à d'énormes défis tels que la sécheresse, les inondations, les feux de brousse et le désenclavement. Face à ces défis, dont la survenance est de plus en plus récurrente, l'apport des télécommunications d'urgence dans le déploiement de la logistique pour les opérations d'assistance et de secours serait inestimable. En effet, un pays comme le Niger aura plus besoin de dispositifs de télécommunications d'urgence, d'autant plus que seuls 25% de la population a encore accès aux services de télécommunications. L'adoption en 2007 d'une stratégie d'accès universel aux services de communication et d'information en milieu rural et périurbain participe à la mise à disposition des services de télécommunication aux populations les plus exposées à ces multiples défis de la nature. Aussi, la mise en œuvre du projet Connecter une école, connecter une communauté, avec l'appui de l'Union internationale des télécommunications, permettra à mon pays de mettre des centres communautaires TIC à la disposition des populations des zones isolées qui, en général, ne disposent pas de la logistique d'assistance et de secours en cas de sinistre. Mais comme tout ce dispositif de connectivité peut ne pas fonctionner devant certaines catastrophes naturelles, mon département ministériel a un projet avec l'Union internationale des télécommunications l'organisation très prochainement d'un atelier sur les télécommunications d'urgence dont l'objectif est non seulement de définir un plan national de télécommunications d'urgence, mais aussi de se doter d'un dispositif technologique de prévention en la matière. Mesdames, Messieurs, distingués invités, on ne saurait parler de télécommunications d'urgence sans évoquer les changements climatiques qui constituent l'un des plus grands défis auxquels l'humanité se trouve confrontée aujourd'hui. Le Niger, comme tous les pays du Sahel, subit les effets néfastes de ces paradoxes climatiques qui font que nous allons d'une extrémité à l'autre, c'est-à-dire de la sécheresse aux inondations. Cette année, le Sahel n'a pas été bien arrosé comme il se doit, alors même que tout l'espoir de productivité agricole de nos populations est fondé sur la bonne répartition des pluies à travers le temps et l'espace. Au Niger, le gouvernement n'a pas attendu le fait accompli pour informer, communiquer et sensibiliser l'opinion nationale et internationale sur ce que nous impose la nature par la conséquence des actes que l'homme impose à la nature. Pour faire face à ces aléas climatiques et sécuriser nos populations, un dispositif institutionnel a été mis en place par le président de la République, son Excellence M. Issoufou Mahamadou. Il s'agit de la haute autorité à l'initiative 3N, c'est-à-dire les Nigériens, l'UNIS, les Nigériens. La sécheresse ne doit plus être synonyme de famine. L'enclavement ne doit pas être synonyme d'isolement. C'est l'apport que peut apporter les TIC. L'apport des télécommunications dans la réduction des émissions de gaz à effet de serre, moteur du changement climatique, serait possible lorsque l'industrie des télécommunications, grosse consommatrice d'énergie fournie à des pays comme ceux du Sahel, des équipements et matériels de télécommunications fonctionnant sous l'énergie solaire, ressources abondantes que nous pouvons partager avec toute la communauté internationale. Mesdames et messieurs, distingués participants, au-delà de ces thématiques, permettez-moi de vous présenter très rapidement l'état du secteur des télécommunications au Niger, qui a été marqué ces dernières années par d'importantes réformes de restructuration, de libération et de privatisation. Actuellement, le Niger, avec l'appui du Bureau de développement de l'Union internationale des télécommunications, a en chantier la transposition des actes additionnels de la CEDEAO en vue de l'harmonisation des cadres politiques et réglementaires pour un marché unique des TIC dans notre espace communautaire. Aussi, pour renforcer la confiance dans l'économie numérique, un cadre juridique portant sur la cybercriminalité, les transactions électroniques et la protection des données à caractère personnel est en cours d'élaboration avec le soutien de la CEDEAO. Pour soutenir un tel environnement réglementaire propice au développement des TIC, le législateur nigérien vient au titre du régime de la commande publique, consacré en principe fondamental constitutionnel le partenariat public-privé, ce qui autorise désormais le gouvernement à faire usage légalement de ce type de cadre juridique plus adapté à donner réponse aux besoins d'investissement de notre pays. Notre secteur des technologies de l'information est d'autant plus porteur que l'environnement économique national est particulièrement favorable avec l'exploitation de nos importantes ressources du sous-sol comme l'uranium, l'or et le pétrole, dont le premier baril viendra en décembre 2011. Distingués participants, mon pays, le Niger, a plusieurs projets porteurs relatifs au développement du secteur des télécommunications et des TIC, au nombre desquels les projets de backbone national en fibre optique reliant la frontière du Mali à la frontière du Tchad, ainsi que des bretelles à l'intérieur et le voisinage. Le projet de la liaison fibre optique transsaharienne Algérie-Niger-Nigeria. Le projet de construction de l'intranet gouvernemental. L'attribution de 2 licences 3e génération. La privatisation de l'opérateur historique. La mise en œuvre de la stratégie d'accès universel aux services de communication et d'information en milieu rural et périurbain à l'aide du Fonds d'accès universel. Enfin, la mise en œuvre de la stratégie de migration vers la radiodiffusion numérique terrestre. En cela, j'invite tous les investisseurs intéressés à se manifester pour un ou plusieurs de ces projets. Mon gouvernement reste disposé à examiner avec toute l'attention requise toutes les propositions ainsi que leurs possibilités de réalisation dans le cadre d'un partenariat gagnant-gagnant. Mesdames, Messieurs, distingués participants, au terme de mon intervention, je voudrais saluer la coopération fructueuse qu'entretient mon pays avec l'Union internationale des télécommunications, institution avec qui mon département ministériel conduit présentement la mise en place de centres communautaires TIC dans le cadre du projet Connecter une école, connecter une communauté. Vive la coopération internationale, vive la solidarité internationale pour l'édification d'une société de l'information inclusive. Je vous remercie de votre attention. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Excellency, je vous remercie pour votre présentation. Vous mentionnez la sécheresse de Niger. En effet, il y a 3 ans, au mois de juin 2008, j'étais là à Niger. La sécheresse, c'est vraiment terrible. On parlait beaucoup de le changement de climat. mois de juin, quand on était là, c'était très très chaud. Si on augmentait la température, la chaleur, on ne sait pas comment on peut vivre là. Donc, c'est vraiment un très grand problème pour nous. Donc, je vous remercie pour votre présentation. I would like to now invite, for the balance, gender balance, like to invite my friend, Her Excellency, Mr. Matic, to give us her remarks.
And I will try to be short for two reasons at least. First of all, there's many of us. And then second of all, I will actually repeat some of the things that have been said, because these are exactly the points I wanted to make. And these would be the points that Mr. Zhao has made, and as well His Excellency, the Deputy Minister from Egypt. In my opinion, the two key challenges that the humanity is facing today, and these two challenges would be the climate change, and then also finding the new sources of economic growth, as it seems that the growth that we have known until now is not sustainable, and we will not be able to carry it forward. We will need to look for new sources of growth and new ways to grow without endangering the nature and the climate that we all depend on. And in my opinion, the information and communication technologies will be the platform to find both. The ICTs will provide new productivity and new efficiency, therefore will be grounds for the new sources of growth of economy around the world. And it will be the growth that will be much more sustainable. So we will not be depleting the resources, the scarce resources of the earth, and we will not be endangering the climate and the environment. Now, as it has been said, the ITU will have the key role in that to make that message clear and to help us all make that message in our own countries, but it will also be up to us to make that message in the international fora, as Mr. Zhao has suggested. I am sure that it has been a challenge for all of you in your countries, as it has been a challenge for me to promote the ICT as the solution, because sometimes this will be seen as a luxury that is not necessarily needed. But this, going back to what my Egyptian colleague has said, is actually, in my opinion, a chance and an opportunity for developing countries to leapfrog, to skip some of the wrong steps that have been made by more developed countries, to avoid some of the dirty technologies and some of the detrimental technologies, and to go straight to the most efficient and most environmentally friendly standards and technologies. And this choice is not always easy, because there are several forces that try to influence the decision-making processes in the way that would offload the dirty and bad technologies to the developing countries, creating a risk and a danger for us to become the repository of the old-timers, which is something we all need to avoid. And therefore, I think the consultations like this among the ministers in charge are very valuable, and I really hope and I encourage ITU to sustain this dynamics among us. So what I look forward is the upcoming conferences, and in my case especially the Rio +20, to highlight the role of the ICT in creating the sustainability model, the new sustainability model for development for the whole world, as we know that the ICTs have helped achieve the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, as much as they will be achieved. But the ICTs also, in my mind, will be the platform to create the new goals for the UN and for the humanity to strive for in the period to come. And the key, let me repeat that, I think will be finding the new sources of growth in an environmentally friendly way. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your encouragement to ITU, and also your invitation to all the other member states to help us to raise our voice there. Next, I'd like to invite Minister of Rugonda to give us his remarks. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister from Uganda, not the Republic of Rwanda, which is a friendly neighboring country to Uganda. Mr. Chairman, Uganda is experiencing climate change and its negative impact, like a number of countries have already stated. But I would like to highlight the point made by Egypt, that although Uganda, Africa, and the developing countries are victims of climate change, the fact of the matter is that these countries and continents have not contributed to the cause of emission of greenhouse gases that are responsible for the climate change, and that we do not have adequate capacity for both mitigation and adaptation. And therefore, there is urgency and need for us, especially in the developing world, to work with ITU and other organizations to put the necessary pressure on the developed world, who are squarely responsible for the highest proportion of emission of greenhouse gases that is creating adverse effects of climate change, where we are victims, where we are getting floods, there are drought and hunger and starvation, to ensure that that situation changes. Therefore, in combating this menace of climate change, the developed countries must come and play a critical role in supporting the people of the world, especially in developing countries, to carry out the issues of mitigation, adaptation, and monitoring. Number two, a point made by Serbia, which I will emphasize. As we run developing countries to have ICTs, we do not have the resources to get the most sophisticated equipment, and therefore the dangers of becoming a dumping ground for disused and obsolete equipment from the developed countries is very high. And this obsolete equipment will often require a lot of energy use. And therefore ICTs, while they may be saving energy in the developed world, when they come to the developing world, because they are obsolete, old-fashioned, they will exert more pressure on consumption of energy. And therefore, they will end up being producers of greenhouse gases in our own environment. Therefore, there is great need for ITU in particular to help protect the developing countries, to ensure that they are not a dumping ground. And this can be done through being strict on issues of standards and transfer equipment, and also supporting the developing world in preparation of plans, facilities for e-waste. Otherwise, it is going to become a major, major problem. Third point, there is need for the world to invest more resources in research and development, so as to look for and get more friendly, greener sources of energy, so that at the moment, the types that we are using, the equipment we are using, which is depending on use of fuel and whatnot, can come to an end. In fact, the problems we have, you find that you require so much diesel to ensure that various stations are fired up. And the point made by Bangladesh of solar energy and other friendly sources of energy should be greatly supported, and other research and development will help in this. The final comment I want to make as I conclude is that this is a major subject. It has been underplayed, and especially in the ICT area, we tend to be more technical and don't bother too much about broader critical issues. I think this is the time for the sector of ICT globally to put more emphasis on broader issues of climate change and ensure that ICTs are in effect promoting reduction of greenhouse gases emissions instead of promoting it, which is happening at the moment in the developing countries. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I visited Uganda 3 times. And the first time I was there in July 2003. I was informed that Uganda has 27 million population. At that moment, Uganda had about 65,000 fixed lines, but they already had 700,000 mobiles. So definitely mobiles is 10 times more than fixed lines then. I was very pleased to revisit Uganda once again about 1.5 years later. I was told that the population is increased. Not only 27 now, at that moment it's 28, maybe now it's 30, I don't know. But the 28 million. And then the mobile telephone penetration is already 20%. So I was really very pleased to hear that statistic, because I still remember that during Telecom Africa 2004 in Cairo, our ministers announced that by the year of 2010, the telephone penetration in Africa should be changed from 4% to 10% by year 2010. Then 2008, when I visited Uganda, I was informed that it's only 20% of population already got. That is a marvelous achievement. Of course, you are still increasing. And another good story I heard from Uganda was someone told me that you're fishermen. Use our mobile phones to locate the fishes in the lake. That is something, it's not for climate change, but anyhow, to help agriculture. So I was very pleased to hear this story. So thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your presentation. Next, let me invite my dear friend, Minister Patayachi, Minister from South Africa, to give us some remarks. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me also appreciate the comments made by Minister Ruganda from Uganda. I can understand how your name got confused as being the minister from Rwanda. But I think the comments made by yourself, good sir, is indeed refreshing and extremely positive to marshal the developing countries' perspective in trying to establish an approach to COP17. I think we agree with you that climate change associated with greenhouse gas emissions is one of the most pressing public policy issues in the world today. As you know, the United Nations Climate Change Conference will be hosted in Durban, South Africa, from the 28th of November to the 9th of December. And this conference, officially referred to as the 17th session of the Conference of Parties, COP17, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is universally recognized as the most important international forum to tackle the problem of global climate change. With 192 parties, the convention enjoys near universal membership. The ultimate objective of the convention is to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere at a level that will prevent dangerous human interference with the climate system. Now, we believe that there are two dynamics with respect to the impact of ICTs on the environment. The first is that ICTs are indeed identified as a source, a contributing source of greenhouse gases. And secondly, that ICTs as a tool for the efficient use of energy, and thus, therefore, an important instrument for reducing greenhouse gases. We are very appreciative of the role of the ITU in facilitating an international perspective on how ICTs can make a substantive contribution to the reduction of greenhouse gases. And there are a number of important events that have been organized by the ITU to help us to develop this kind of perspective. We think that one of the most important principles that we need to recall was the World Telecommunications Development Conference, known as WTDC 10, which in its final report stated that climate change challenges our ability to achieve economic and social objectives to support sustainable development. The important aspect of the statement that we recall is that the adverse effects of climate change are likely to fall disproportionately on developing countries, given their limited resources. Telecommunications and ICTs are recognized as having to make a valuable contribution to the monitoring, mitigating, and adapting to climate change. And there will continue to be a need to help developing countries in particular to respond to this climate change. Another important resolution, Resolution 73, adopted at the WTSA Standardization Assembly in 2008 in South Africa, was the commitment that we made to work towards the reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases arising from the use of ICTs, and that we as the ICT global community can in fact make a very significant contribution. Now, the key issues have, in our own estimation, been identified as being the main source of greenhouse gas emissions with respect to ICTs are personal computers and data monitors, data centers, fixed and mobile handsets, telecommunications, network infrastructure, electronic wastes, radio transceivers, TV sets, digital cinema, DVD players, recorders, and decoders, etc. Now, these are clearly operated by means of power, which at least radiates heat in the form of carbon dioxide, resulting in additional climate negative impacts by increasing the average global temperature levels in the world. Of course, studies have shown that the ICT sector contributes about 2 to 2.5% of greenhouse gas emissions. And we do think that the interventions that could assist in reducing these emissions is the use of more efficient energy equipment, the promotion of innovative technologies such as new generation networks, and the greater use of recycling and the safe disposal of wastes may certainly assist in reducing global warming. But if we look around the table assembled here in this particular Ministerial Roundtable conference, you will see that the majority of the countries who've expressed an interest in this commission are coming from developing countries. And as the president and chair of COP17, South Africa has to promote an agreement amongst parties with extremely divergent views and positions on how to move the global climate change agenda forward. So we are conscious of the enormous responsibility that our country has in accommodating the world community at this historic conference in Durban. And we want to take the opportunity of inviting all of you to come to Durban. It's a beautiful place in South Africa. It's where the cosmopolitan vibe of multiculturalism will thrill you forever. And if you've had the experience of coming to FIFA 2010 in South Africa, you will indeed enjoy the COP17 in Durban, and it will be a lasting impression. But let me make a few comments, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the kind of perspectives for the developing countries that we think would be important as far as COP17 is concerned and the outcomes that we want from COP17. Now, many developing countries expect outcomes with common but differentiated responsibilities between developed and developing countries in terms of the kind of commitments that they will make to reduce greenhouse gas. The issue of adapting to the impacts of climate change and the allocation of a significant proportion of the financing to this work must be the key priority for African countries, including South Africa. Part of the adaptation and mitigation involves the deployment of green technologies to improve energy efficiency and to monitor and measure greenhouse gas emissions. The majority of green technologies are ICTs, of which most of them are located in the developed countries. In this connection, developed countries have agreed to provide funding to assist developing countries with their adaptation and mitigation efforts. Part of the adaptation and mitigation involves the deployment of these technologies to improve energy efficiency and to monitor and measure greenhouse gas emissions. The climate change discourse therefore provides markets for the deployment of these technologies in developing countries to the advantage of the industrialized countries. However, this is seen as an excellent opportunity by many developing countries to promote the idea of the transfer of technology to developing countries, including the licensing for local manufacture, dissemination of knowledge and technical expertise, foreign investments, and joint research and development with respect to R&D in developing countries. I think the important principle that we all agree is that the people who contribute most to being the polluters in the world must in fact come closer to making a mandatory commitment to reduce greenhouse gases. It cannot be that those of us who are in the developing countries must continue to be the victims of pollution that do not arise from our own industries. So we trust and hope that the initiatives that will flow from COP17 in Durban in South Africa will be something that the developing countries will take with enthusiasm and would lead the global dialogue and the global debate on pushing the agenda for effective reform on climate change measures forward. In this regard, we are encouraged by the fact that India is playing a very significant role. South Africa now has assumed the responsibility also to host this major conference. And upcoming in 2012 would be Brazil driving the agenda on this developing countries. And in this regard, I think the significant responsibility does in fact fall on the ITU as our leader to marshal us, to shape our perspectives, and to continue to give us the opportunity to dialogue with each other so that we can, as a collective, crystallize our own interventions that would accelerate the global debate on climate change for the benefit of not only the developing countries, but for the entire world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Parayachi. I don't know whether I would agree with you. ITU is a leader. ITU is a coordinator, facilitator, your spokesman, or representative of families at the conference. But anyhow, I appreciate very much your encouragement, and also for COP17. It's quite important. I'm leaving to New York tomorrow to attend the Chief Executive Committee meetings of United Nations, chaired by Mr. Ban Ki-moon. And I think that COP17 will be highly on the agenda Friday morning. So I will also highlight what I heard from these roundtable discussions and bring your messages there. And for your information, ITU will also send a high-level delegation there. Mr. Malcolm Johnson, TSB Director, will head a ITU delegation. We will organize some side events there. But again, I think that the most important is we have to get coordinate actions from our national delegations and pushed by our ministers to inform them the importance of ICT and the usefulness of ICT. So let's try together. Let's try together. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that we have much time, but still I have my last speakers and panelists. Then I have some other ministers who wish to intervene. So let me just give a chance to my last speaker as a panelist, Mr. Philip Okundi, the chairman of Communication Committee of Kenya. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
I will appreciate that if you can
make it short.
as short as possible.
Yeah,
but
I want to make
I will
it,
not stop you. You know,
Mr.
you
Chairman,
make your intervention.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make it very short. I want to appreciate the earlier speeches from Minister from Uganda, Serbia, and South Africa. I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, that this is a very, very big problem. It is estimated that this week, the 7th billion man arrived on this planet. And so it just makes the problem more complicated. I think from the perspective of ITU, we really have to look at this ICT sector very critically to strengthen the ITU, as has been said. We in Kenya, we really take it very seriously, the issue of climate change, because we depend mainly on agriculture. 24% of our GDP is from agriculture, and it employs 60% of Kenyans, and the export earnings are well over 60%. So 80% of agricultural production is very, very important in our real life. So our food security relies on agriculture. And as Kenya, we are hosting the United Nations Environmental Program. And on this program, there's a number of issues on climate change being discussed almost on a weekly basis. Kenya was one of the earliest to adopt the UN Convention on Climate Change way back in 1994. We also have established as a ministry environmental management program, which tend to dictate these things. Mr. Chairman, on the ICT sector, I think that it is well known today that there is something like about $700 billion in the ICT sector itself worldwide. And if we really promote the sector in our own individual countries, we are going to earn substantial sums to fight anything that make our lives very difficult. So I see that the ICT sector need to really go into our schools so that the youth come up with a growth to deal with the issue of climate change, which will affect their life. And here, I think that it's easy, and it's very easy to spread across the people. It is very true that the developing countries did not really become major causes of climate change, but this now has become a reality as people are struggling to live on this climate. So our real role as we see it ourselves is that we need to strengthen the ITU, because ITU arm embraces all groups, all people in the world, to create standards, study groups in their endeavor to create rules which will direct people to do things. For example, in infrastructure, the infrastructure is really the destruction or formation of infrastructures is also one way that the climate change is taking place. So we need to do networks, look at the servers, cloud computing, the ducts, the standards that will make this become more energy saving efficient. Use of greenhouse power sources like the ICT facilities. So we would encourage solar power, wind power, water power, so that we really leave the energies that produce climate change. And use of biodegradable components in manufacturing the ICT devices. This can come in the standard so that it is enforced all over the world so that you just find that it is there. Also use of ICT to mitigate negative effects of climate change, meaning early warning, emergency responses. And in this, Mr. Chairman, we in Kenya, we have adopted Kenya National Climate Change Response Strategy. And we have it on the website. It's www.environment.go.ke. And there we are inviting all kinds of advices and discussions in order to mitigate on climate change. The management of the e-waste, that is the reuse or recycle or responsible disposal, in all these kinds of things are areas which ICT can impact. Mr. Chairman, how do we need to strengthen the ITU? I think we all should work towards introducing green ICT, ITU market conformity, so that people don't buy equipment that does not conform to this. Because again, in Kenya, for example, we have almost 4 million mobile phones, which are fake, sort of, which are very bad, and they are producing this. So this one we can do. We hasten climate change studies, strengthen conformance assessments, develop indicators on ICT, on climate change, and this is again work which can be done with the ITU. Basically to our people, we are encouraging afforestation, meaning replanting so that green trees are all over the country. And all these are areas which we need to. But lastly, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a very useful forum, and I would suggest that each of the ITU conferences should have this as a major subject where ministers at the level of policy can look at these things so that a worldwide effect can be created. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I take note of your request, but I think that next time we should plan our meeting a little bit longer because we don't have much time. We have so many ministers here, and we don't even have chance for everyone to speak. That is not nice. And we should have some debate among ourselves to get a much clear idea. But unfortunately, really, we don't have much time. And now I have still 3 ministers like to speak. Minister from Gabon, Minister from Sierra Leone, Minister from Malawi. I will invite each of them to speak. But anyhow, I think that Minister Gabon requested first, if you just allow me. So I will invite each minister to speak, if possible, as short as possible, because I have to chair another meeting, 12:30. And also, I still like to have some chance to have some kind of exchange, debate. So, Minister Paul Nidon Nikwema, I have a problem of pronunciation. Maybe it's a problem with the Uganda minister, Ruganda. I thought it's Ruganda. It's not the Uganda. I know very much Uganda. It's not the Uganda or Rwanda. Huh? But anyhow, Ministère de la Communication, de la Poste et de l'Économie numérique Gabon, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, je suis Paul Ndongema, ministre de la Communication, de la Poste et de l'Économie numérique du Gabon. Monsieur le Président, d'emblée, je crois que je voudrais me réjouir d'être autour de cette table pour débattre du thème changement climatique. Je pense que tout est parti d'un constat de l'augmentation progressive de la température de la planète. Et cette hausse de température qui est à l'origine des dégradations que nous connaissons n'épargne ni aucun pays, ni aucune partie de notre planète. De nombreux pays ont réalisé la gravité des conséquences de ces bouleversements climatiques et ont conclu à la réduction des effets du réchauffement qui ne pourrait être efficace que si tous les pays, notamment les plus grands pollueurs, s'impliquent totalement dans la maîtrise des émissions des GES. L'établissement d'un consensus autour d'une vision globale et partagée des enjeux du réchauffement climatique est indispensable pour apporter une réponse mondiale à ce phénomène. Ce décor planté, Monsieur le Président, puisque le temps nous est compté, je voudrais me permettre de vous parler de la contribution du Gabon à la lutte contre les changements climatiques avant d'aborder l'apport des TIC dans la lutte contre les changements climatiques. Le Gabon participe activement à la lutte contre les changements climatiques à deux niveaux. Au niveau national, d'abord, par la mise en œuvre de la politique du Gabon vert. Le Gabon vert est un des piliers du projet de société du président de la République, qui lui-même a eu l'honneur de décliner hier à l'occasion du discours d'ouverture. 3 piliers, le Gabon vert, qui regarde le Gabon industriel, qui lui regarde le Gabon des services. À ce propos, le plan climat national constitue une ligne directrice du modèle de développement du Gabon. Et ce plan formule une stratégie de développement du Gabon dans un contexte propre et durable, en tenant compte des impacts d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Il s'agit, à propos du plan national, du plan climat, il s'agit d'un outil d'aide à la décision qui intègre les aspects environnementaux à la réflexion économique. Au niveau international, le Gabon participe donc par la signature d'accords et la participation dans des programmes de coopération régionale et internationale. Nous avons entendu parler du COMIFAC, qui est la Commission des forêts d'Afrique centrale, la conférence de Copenhague, l'adhésion au mécanisme de réduction des émissions liées à la déforestation et à la dégradation des forêts, la conférence de Nagoya, etc. Comment envisageons-nous l'apport des TIC dans la lutte contre les changements climatiques? Très rapidement, une agence dénommée l'Agence gabonaise d'études et d'observation spatiale est née donc, dans le cadre du plan aligné par le président de la République pour doter le Gabon d'outils de haute technologie qui lui permettent l'observation et la gestion environnementale du territoire national, et cette fois-ci-là depuis l'espace. Cette agence a initié un projet de surveillance de l'environnement assisté par satellite. Ce projet comporte la construction d'un centre de compétences de télédétection de niveau international, d'une station de réception des données satellitaires sur un rayon de à peu près 2800 km. Les thématiques prioritaires de ce projet sont, je les énumère très rapidement, le suivi des changements du couvert forestier. Vous savez que le Gabon est à 85% couvert par la forêt, et de la dégradation de l'environnement et de l'épidémiologie. La gestion de ressources en eau, la planification urbaine, la gestion intégrée des zones côtières, la mise à jour de la cartographie nationale. Monsieur le Président, je voudrais inviter les honorables délégués à rendre visite, à visiter notre stand qui se tient à ce propos quelque part non loin d'ici, pour avoir plus amples informations sur ces projets que met en œuvre à l'heure actuelle la République gabonaise et qui s'appelle GOL, RAG, Plan climat, dont je venais de parler, la station de réception des données spatiales pour saisir les changements climatiques et ses effets sur notre pays. Ce stand est quelque part dans le grand hall ici. Pour terminer, Monsieur le Président, je voudrais me rendre très sensible au nom de ma délégation à propos des messages de l'UIT sur le domaine qui nous concerne aujourd'hui et prendre un engagement au nom de mon pays pour dire que de tels messages seront traduits en actes au plan national. Je vous remercie.
Excellent, excellent. Excellence Ministre, je crois que c'est mon grand honneur pour vous accompagner, accueillir le président de Gabon à l'aéroport lundi matin. Oui, on était très heureux, votre président nous rejoindre à cette Telecom. Mais je notais aussi, attention, votre président a annoncé hier, Gabon 3 stratégies, Gabon vert, Gabon service. Mais je crois, quand j'ai entendu Gabon vert, je crois Gabon déjà très vert, comparé avec Niger, comparé avec l'autre, il y a grande sécheresse. Vous avez assez vert. Mais je comprends. Votre président n'est pas parlé de verre de arbre, c'était de verre de technologie. C'était très bien, excellent. Votre message est bien pris, donc il va présenter aussi Ban Ki-moon le vendredi matin. Merci. Excellencies, I don't have really much time, but I got urgent request from Minister of Togo. He has one sentence to read. I will give also Minister Malawi to speech. Without your speech, I will not leave this room. Don't worry. And also Sierra Leone. First, Togo, please. Just one sentence.
Thank you. So my one sentence is that I have a suggestion for the future. I think that in roundtables, we shouldn't read our speeches, or it shouldn't be about speech. It should be about very small, concrete debate. We would take, for example, data centers and wonder how, in terms of policy, we would green and help green, data centers. What is it as governments that we can do? And we debate about that, because having, ministers coming from all over, it's a great thing. But if we're here to read about what is, very abstract or high-level themes, I think that it's less useful than taking very small points and exchanging about what we do policy-wise to improve these issues. Thank you.
Yeah, Minister of Togo, thank you very much for your very valuable suggestions. But however, I think that at this level, at this forum, if we don't hear the opinions from our ministers of their national plans, that will be also a big mistake. The only problem is, as I followed the debate of CCK chairman, that unfortunately we don't have much time. Next time we should have planned more time to have a debate. But next I'd like to invite the Minister of Malawi to give us short remarks. And Sierra Leone will be last, but not least for sure.
Thank you so much, the Vice Secretary General. And let me also concur with what the Minister from Kenya, Egypt, and also Uganda, and even concurring whatever you've said, that next time we've got to give enough time to the ministers, because we are networking with government. And whoever is reading a speech has got to know that some ministers are also politicians. And whatever transpires here, it goes back to wherever we are coming from. So it depends wherever the person is coming from. But we salute whatever comes out of these discussions. But we need to have also, as ministers, that this is what we said, for one to back up him or herself, whatever he has said, with this high table or ministerial meeting. But I do concur with that, and I salute my fellow lady as a minister for the comments which has said. But through you, as Vice Secretary General, would like to ask you to lobby with the developed countries, that they've got to give enough resources to developing countries, because we are really suffering from the impact of the greenhouse emissions. And we are really suffering effectively, greatly. While them being developed countries, they have modern technologies of mitigating the climate change. But also, as the Minister of Kenya said, that we depend, as developing countries, we depend on agriculture. But the developed countries, they come and dictate the prices, which is very unfortunate, because it's no good that they've got to come and dictate the prices, and yet they know that this is what we are depending on in whatever. But seeing all those and going through all those, knowing that we have a number of problems, the proliferation of towers resulting in wanton cutting of trees, issues of excess power requirements like the ICT requiring switches and also the base stations, but also the issue of waste of absolute computers and phones, which has even really impacted us, affected us very much. As government, we look into reviewing the policies and making sure that operators also are powered in ICT equipment. And we have more studies being undertaken on electrical magnet fields. We are also encouraging infrastructure that is sharing by operators. And government has also removed the tax on the equipment that when we are importing equipment, we need to use the equipment which are used by generator, renewable energy resources, that we shouldn't have problems. We do also encourage the schools, the primary and secondary schools, that they've got to be using computers instead of papers, because it also affects the climate change. And even in our centers, using the solar system in our computers, developed computer-based examination, which will reduce that, which you've said, and the centers which we are assisted by the ITU as well as the government of Malawi and the other operators, we are encouraging the solar-powered computers in these areas. Your Honor, ICT policy in Malawi is being reviewed, that makes sure that our operators and even the government, wherever, since we have a number of operators and we have fixed phones which are subscribed by 42,000 people and 2.5 million people who are using the mobile, and the penetration is 26% of the mobile and 2% of the fixed. So we are making sure that they've got also to use the solar-powered system. So as Malawi, we are really committed to make sure that we have also the equipment which we monitor the environment changes. Example, studying of the rainfall partners, assisting farmers in concluding or in deciding when to plant and when to harvest and when to be ready of whatever. Even disaster, preparing for the risks and that the disaster may also affect us in our country. So we are doing a lot. And I wanted to take 5 minutes of your time and make sure next time, since we are government, you give us a lot of time that we need to share. What is it Egypt is doing? What is it Kenya is doing? What is it Zambia is doing? So that when we hear from them, we can also move ahead and see that how best we can take up and cope up what our fellow government officials are doing. Thank you so much. May God bless you as you help us.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your proposal. You see, all those lady ministers, you know, they have a very good proposals to see how can we make efficient use of our minister time, come together to have a joint common voice in the world. I think that I really appreciate your intervention. Next, last one is not least for sure. The Minister from Sierra Leone, please.
I'm going to be very brief here. I want to look at this discussion. I was going to call it a debate, but it is not a debate. This is why I think she was right. It should have been a debate. I want to look at it from the very practical angle. I come from a sub-region that has suffered devastatingly. If you look at our fellows in the north, from Mali, Niger, etc., you will discover that the Sahel region is suffering seriously, to the extent that even their livelihood is threatened, taking into consideration the fact that these are nomads who are losing their capacity to rear their animals. But for those of us who are close to the coast itself, if you look at the statistics, in 1930, we had very close to about 80% forest cover. Today it's about 15% forest cover, which means that something disastrous is happening to the environment. So we ask ourselves the fundamental question: what do we do to avert this kind of disaster that is developing time and time again? But, Mr. Chairman, may I state that when we talk about climate change, this topic in itself is also discussed in other fora. The Copenhagen discussion on this issue, Trinidad and Tobago, it was discussed by the heads of the Commonwealth countries. But the fact of the matter is that we think that at the ICT level, we must begin to ask ourselves the question: How do we utilize ICT as a model to address these issues? In other words, we talk about early warning mechanism. What do we do to ensure that we put in place the structures for early warning mechanism to make sure that we avert any possibility of destruction? If you go to other parts of the world, we now see flooding all over the place. What could we have done to avert that? I think ICT has the technology to be able to put in place structures for early warning mechanism. But may I state, Mr. Chairman, before I round up, this meeting I see is a psychological preparation for the COP17 itself, so that all of us can prepare ourselves for the bigger debate there when we go to South Africa. This is also a very important forum for us to begin to ask ourselves the question that what do we do? The geopolitical aspect of it is very clear. Some politicians, heads of state, are already talking about the possibility of sinking countries, that countries can actually sink 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now. So what do we do in the area of ICT to begin to tell the people, early warning mechanism, that you are running into difficulties? I would not call the name of a head of state who did tell us in Trinidad and Tobago that if we are not careful, in the next 30 years, his country may just disappear in the sea. So to us, these are some very, very important aspects which we must look into. But if I must come back to the final point, RTU is a very important component in this whole fight to address this issue. But I see ITU as an important component, especially in the area of early warning mechanism. Tell us what we have in store for the future. If we have the equipment that is necessary to help us in early warning mechanisms, that is well and good. But I think there is the way forward. Once we go for COP17, then of course we'll open the debate and all of us will discuss it very, very clearly. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Indeed, IT does have a lot of projects. For example, these early warning systems, training courses, and those mitigation courses. We do organize workshops on these natural disasters problems from time to time. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I really not have much time to have a debate now, because I have to go up to the other side to open. Yeah, they're pushing me. But anyhow, I think that it's very clear to me. Our ministers consider this kind of forum very important. Our ministers really want to use this forum to exchange views, to share the experiences, and then to prepare the common positions to work together. I think that this is the message very clear to us, and we would like to see in the future how can we make the best use of your time, and to try to get messages from you be promoted to the rest of the world.